Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So again, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Some devotees walked in during japa. Is there anyone here for the first time? You are not greeted? Yes, Prabhuji. Your name? Your name? Jai? Haribo. So let's welcome Prabhuji here. Haribo! Thank you so much, Prabhu, for coming today and joining us. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Someone else raise their hand here for the first time? Yes, Prabhuji. Your name is? Rajesh. Charlotte. Okay. And your family is here, right? Mataji, your name? Your daughter? Okay, so let's welcome this family from Charlotte. Haribo! Anyone else here for the first time? Okay, wonderful. Thank you everyone for joining us. So as I mentioned earlier, this last Monday was Bhadra Purnima, where all over the world there is this offering of sharing the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. So today, right now, we'll have a class by His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and at 5:45 we'll stand up and we'll announce our offering for the pleasure of their Lordship Shri Radha Golokananda, Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled Vaishnavas. And then at 6 p.m. we'll have our dinner prasadam. Okay. Also, we'd like to thank the devotees who have sponsored the feast today. Today's feast is sponsored by Radha Ranjan Prabhu and Ashta Sakhi Mataji. And the feast is sponsored in honor of their departed forefathers. I'm going to read their, in whose name they have offered this. So Lakshman Chandra Nayak, Sridhar Nayak, Yadu Nayak, Niti Nayak, Usha Nayak, Keti Nayak, Chandri Nayak, Banikiya Nayak, Radha Nayak, Sananda Nayak, Dali Nayak, and Tulasi Nayak. So let's pray for all these departed souls that very in the lotus feet of Sri Sri Radha Golokananda. So let's loudly chant the holy name, calling out for their mercy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sri Sri Radha Golokananda ki jai. Okay, so now we'll have a class by His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Haribo. So I request everyone, please come forward for the class. Please everyone, if you can kindly come all the way here. This entire space is empty. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, can everyone hear me, or is it loud enough? Okay. So, nice to see everybody. Thank you all for coming this nice Sunday in North Carolina. And again, we'd like to welcome one of my old friends, Jaya Jagadish. We spent years together in South America and in other places too, enduring the greatest austerities that we cannot even talk about. And you know, Adhyatmic, Adhidaivic, Adhibodhic, and Adhisannyasic. But that's an inside joke that I can't tell anyone. Anyway, I won't tell you what it means. Anyway, so we're going to have a little class in the Bhagavad-Gita tonight, and we only had to 5:45 since Aditya Narayan Prabhu is going to be making some announcements about the Sankirtan Bhadra Purnima program. And normally I'd be speaking from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm giving class every night in the Chaitanya Charitamrita online at 5 to 6 o'clock, but this evening we're not going to give a class on the Chaitanya Charitamrita because we're at a specific point in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where we're dealing with the intimate loving exchanges of Radha and Krishna. So I didn't think it would be appropriate for a Sunday program, so we're going to go to the Bhagavad Gita and talk about determination today, which is actually really important. Because nowadays you don't find people so determined. Of course, first we'll chant Jai Radha Madhava. Jayo Radha Madhova Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhova Kunja Bihari Gopidana Balaba Girivaruda Gode Gopijana Balaba Girivaruda Gode Yasodanandana Brajajanarandana Yasodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamuna Tirabana Chauti Yamuna Tera Manachauti Jayuradu Madhura Kunyabhigagove Jayuradu Madhura Kunja Bhagavad-Gita Gopijana Palagumba Girivado Dhare Gopijana Balaba Girivadadhare Yasodanandana Brajadanaranjana Yasodanandana Brajadanaranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachare Yamuna Tera Vanachare Jai Huradam Bhagava Kunja Bhagavad Jayaradu Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravatakacharya Also Tara Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopikopatna Shyam Kund, Radhakund, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Maturadam Ki Jai, Jagadata Sami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Haribol, all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Putle Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Jatarni. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about determination. And I'm going to read a verse from the Bhagavad-Gita that talks about determination. It's in the second chapter, Bhagavad-Gita, text 41, if you want to read along. So I'll just read the Sanskrit and the English. Vyavasayatmika buddhiyorekeha kudunandana bhavashakatpanantascha buddhiyo vyavasayihinam. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one, O beloved child of the Kurus. The intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So, Prabhupada's purport: a strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasayatmika intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya-lila 2262 states, Shraddha Sabde Vishasakahe Sudrida Nischya Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Kritahoy. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relation to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagement of one's reaction from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he no longer endeavors for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good or bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. Now, I'm not going to read the whole purport because we only have a short amount of time, but I'm going to talk about determination. Now, one thing about determination that we should understand is you're not going to accomplish anything in this world unless you are determined to accomplish something. If you're, as Krishna says here in the verse, Baho Shakta Tvanantascha, if you're all over the place, then you're really not going to accomplish anything material or spiritual. And the first-class example of determination, real determination, I can think of is that of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada showed his one-pointed determination in carrying out the order of his spiritual master. Oftentimes, we think of spiritual life as something that's very amorphous, or something that's very vague, or something that's very sentimental. But actually, to progress in spiritual life, one needs to be determined, just like one needs to be determined in material life. So, what is that determination? I mean, what are you supposed to be determined with or for? And Srila Prabhupada showed that determination was in following the order of the spiritual master. So you may say, what does the order of the spiritual master have to do with spiritual life? That's a very interesting question. Well, it has everything to do with spiritual life because Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, speaks to us through his representatives on this earth. And there's this interesting statement, Atakshi Krishna Namadi, Navavet Grayamendriyai, that with our present senses, we don't really know what Krishna is telling us. I mean, we could read what Krishna is telling us, but as far as right now, what am I supposed to do? What duties am I supposed to carry out? I mean, if you read the Bhagavad-Gita, you think you're supposed to be a fighter. You may apply it. I mean, of course, you're supposed to fight for Krishna in one sense, but we're not supposed to go out there in the battlefield with our bows and arrows, especially bows and arrows nowadays. You should probably use something a little bit more formidable than bows and arrows if you're going to be fighting. So we're not supposed to go out with our bows and arrows in the battlefield. You know, Arjuna, you know, he's carrying out his specific responsibility under the order of his spiritual master. But the spiritual master's duty is to carry out the order of his spiritual master, and that he gives instructions to his disciples, or shishas, according to time, place, and circumstance, and the shishas psychophysical nature, because everybody's different. Even in the same situation, every single jiva soul has a different nature. As Arjuna in the Bhagavad-Gita, his nature was as a Kshatriya. So Krishna's instruction to Arjuna was very specific in regard to the circumstance, in regard to his nature, in regard to the place that he was. Everything was very specific. So going back to Srila Prabhupada's example, Srila Prabhupada got the instruction from his spiritual master when he was in his 20s that he should preach Krishna consciousness in English in the Western world. And so you think, that's the instruction. Actually, Prabhupada said that he never asked his spiritual master any questions other than what? How can I serve you? So from that point onward, I can't expect that sort of determination with anyone else, but from that point onward, but Prabhupada's our example. From that point onwards, Prabhupada just focused like razor sharp on that particular instruction. And even though he was doing business, his purpose of doing business was to carry out the order of his spiritual master. His purpose of doing business was to make money so that he could print books and he could carry out the order of his spiritual master. And Prabhupada tried different strategies. Some strategies worked, other strategies did not work. Like Prabhupada's business ultimately failed. But the strategy, the work, was not a failure. Sometimes people think in spiritual life that you try something, and you're a failure. You're never a failure. There's no loss or diminution. In material life, if you're just engaged in material life, sorry about this, I don't want to discourage anyone, you're always a failure. I apologize beforehand about it. You're always a failure because whatever you get, you lose, ultimately. It's like that myth of Sisyphus. Some of you don't know this. This is actually from Greek mythology. Greek mythology is very interesting, not because it's the absolute truth, but because they present certain stories that help us understand certain philosophical points. There's this guy, his name is Sisyphus. Don't worry about it, you don't have to remember. This is not part of the Bhakti Shastri test. But he was punished. He went to Hell. And, we also have Hell described in our Vedic literatures too. There's stuff like this going on, which is really interesting. Sad, but interesting. You can get out of it just by chanting Hare Krishna. All you got to do is chant Hare Krishna, and you don't have to go to Hell. But this Sisyphus, he didn't chant Hare Krishna. He didn't chant his rounds for some reason. He broke the regulative principles, didn't chant his rounds, he's a rascal. So he went to hell. So his punishment was that he had to roll a stone, up a mountain. Then, after a few seconds, in eternity, then the stone would roll down. And then he would roll it up again. And then it would roll down. And he would roll it up again. And it would roll down. The saying, been there, seen it, done it. Can you imagine doing that a few billion times? Pretty boring. Well, guess what? You've done it. We've been born. We get trained up by our parents, right? Hopefully trained up. We go to school, worry about tests, get traumatized by the teachers, traumatized by our parents when we don't get good enough marks. Our parents insist that we go to medical school. And we spend so many years, and then we have to take care of all the COVID patients in the hospital. And then we start over again. Oh my God. At least if you're going to invest in something you want it to increase. Just like sometimes people invest in this Bitcoin thing, right? And they're getting really nervous. It's going to the bottom's going to drop out because the government's going to declare it to be illegal. So it's just like anxiety all the time. Well, I don't know what's going to happen with Bitcoin. That's not my point. But life is like that. Up and down. It's like a roller coaster. You're riding the wave or riding the whatever it is. And so in spiritual life, you're never a failure, even if you try something and externally it doesn't work. It's not a failure. So Prabhupada, getting back to Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was trying to do business to make money for book. So you may think he was unsuccessful. No, he wasn't a failure. Because his activity was vyavasayatmaka buddhir ekeha kuvarnanda. He was one-pointed, trying to serve his spiritual master, trying to serve Krishna, because the spiritual master speaks on behalf of Krishna. We do not have a direct line with the Supreme Personality of God right now, because we are covered up. That reminds me of a joke. One time a pure devotee went to Rome to visit the Pope, and he said, "Can I borrow your phone to call God?" And he said, "I'll pay you back because it's long distance." And the Pope went to visit the pure devotee in Vrindavan, and he said, "Can I borrow your phone to call God?" And he said, "I'll pay you back." And the pure devotee said, "No, it's actually a local call." So, so we don't know. If we think we know what God is saying to us right now, that's pretty proud. So therefore, we have God's representative who tells us, what God is saying right now. So Prabhupada took that order. Yes, the business didn't work out. Tried some other things, didn't work out. He went to a place called Jhansi, didn't work out. But still, he was fulfilling the order of his spiritual master. Ultimately, he loses all of his money. His friends are not interested in him. Of course, Prabhupada is reciting this verse, Yashaham anagrinami harishe taddanam shanai. For those who I especially favor, I take away everything, and simply people reject them, and then they end up just chanting Hare Krishna and being happy. So I'm not saying that's going to happen to everyone here, so don't worry. But so anyway, so Prabhupada remains determined, then even gets on a steamship to come to America, has heart attacks, 2 heart attacks on the steamship coming over, and he's still just very determined. Krishna reassures him by letting him have a vision of Krishna in his various incarnations, rowing the boat. And then Prabhupada comes to America. He's all alone, sits down in a park and chants Hare Krishna with faith in the holy name, simply determined, because Prabhupada said the success potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is in the order of the spiritual master, and Prabhupada was very fixed on that and would often think of Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's commentary in this particular verse of the Bhagavad-Gita, talking about the same principle. So that, to me, is the best example of determination. And there's other examples, too, that we have in the Vedic literature, like Grandfather Bhishma's determination. He took a vow, Akhanda Brahmachari. The Kumaras' determination, they also either took a vow or whatever. And so many examples of determination. So the question is, actually, how can we be so determined? It's a very interesting question, because we don't find ourselves so determined. Of course, that is because, if we analyze it exactly, for several different reasons. One is that our determination is actually influenced by the 3 modes of nature. There are 3 modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And in ignorance, you got no determination. I mean, if someone was purely in ignorance, they probably wouldn't even wake up. Of course, I've been just visiting the university campus in Raleigh, and I could understand what that means. I'm getting up early in the morning, and people are just rolling, as I'm walking on the streets early in the morning. the students are just rolling on the sidewalks, and I have to step over them like Prabhupada did in the Bowery. I haven't had to step over them yet. They're usually on someone's front lawn rolling around. So, but I'm sure it'll come to that eventually. So, that's the mode of ignorance, where your determination never goes beyond dreaming. You know, tomorrow I'll do my homework. Tomorrow, whatever. It's like procrastination. And then some people are very determined in the mode of passion, but for material things, you know, to make a lot of money, to acquire new things. And in the mode of goodness, we actually find real determination because it's based upon self-realization or a higher goal. So the point about determination is that one has to have a goal. One has to have a value in life. Otherwise, one's activities, especially in spiritual life, will not be consistent. Because, as you know, we who are engaged in spiritual life have some promises or vows that we've made, right? I think so. Like 16 rounds, you know, 4 regulated principles, doing different things like that, serving, of course, serving Krishna with one's life, offering one's food to Krishna. And in order to keep these promises, we have to see beyond the promises to the reason for the promises. And I often call this the why. Because if we're not thinking of why we're doing what we're doing in spiritual life or anything, then it becomes something that's described in Sanskrit as niyam agraha, rituals. And I'm sure you all know what rituals are. Rituals are there's nothing wrong with rituals. Because I'm not saying we shouldn't do any rituals. We should just doesn't matter whether you put tilak on or doesn't matter whether you tie whatever. I'm not saying that. But if we're just doing the rituals will actually disconnect us from our goal. We will just be acting, as I often say, on automatic pilot. Automatic pilot means that you just your body's doing something and your mind is somewhere else. All right, let's take one of the most important activities. No, not the most important activity in spiritual life. It's not one of the most important activities. What's the most important activity in spiritual life? Chanting, right. Chanting, okay. So, Arjuna says in the Bhagavad-Gita, in the 6th chapter, Chanchalahi manaha Krishna pramataya balabhadridam tashaham nigraham manye vayor iva shadushkaram. He says, our mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and it's more difficult than controlling the wind. Has anyone experienced that? No, I'm sure none of you have. Every day, every moment, and even as you're sitting here in class, your mind is probably thinking, oh my God, when is Prasadam coming? This sounds like one of those old fanatic Hare Krishna classes. Anyway, so, yeah, because the mind goes all over the place. In the first opportunity to be unfocused, you're unfocused. I I had experience like driving a car. I was driving a car yesterday, and I put it on, autopilot. And it really was a struggle to keep myself focused on the road, knowing the car was going to drive itself. But I did. Keep my eyes on the road. But somehow or other I did. So, chanchalahi mana. So it's more difficult than controlling the wind. But if one has an important goal, we call that a sankalpa, an intention, a goal, then it becomes easier to focus on that goal while you're doing what you're doing. And so the goal, like Prabhupada was focused, getting back to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada was focused on pleasing his spiritual master. That was Prabhupada's focus. And That's actually proof also that Prabhupada was the greatest disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Because if the same order is given to many, many disciples, and one disciple just surrenders and does everything to do that, so that indicates the greatness, the determination of the disciple. So, but where does that determination to do that or follow that goal or sankalpa comes from? It comes from bhakti. That's why we talk about bhakti being much more potent, and Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita, of course, says the same thing at the end of the 6th chapter. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmanam shadavam bhajate yomam salma yukta tamo mataha. That of all types of yogis, the bhakti yogi is the topmost, because the energy of devotion is stronger than any other energy there is. That's really what Krishna is talking about here, and actually Prabhupada is also talking about in his purport. The energy of devotion, love. Why am I doing this? Well, you could say, to satisfy the spiritual master. But then you get into another why. Why should I satisfy my spiritual master? Because I want to get liberated. That's not so interesting. I mean, maybe for you it is. But because I love my spiritual master, I want to satisfy. Therefore, I love Krishna. Krishna says, if you have a man and the man serves your child, or well, I don't want to use it, but probably use the example, dog. That's how you get. That's how you get the mercy of the master or the man. Let's say if you walk up to someone and you say, "What a nice child you have." I really love your child, not too much, but you got a great child. The mother will say, like Madhav, isn't it? If I say, Madhav, oh, your child's the best in the 3 worlds. Then she'll say, well, you're the best guru in the 3 worlds. That's why politicians used to pick up babies before COVID and kiss them. So anyway, so that's the point. So Krishna consciousness, the energy of Krishna consciousness, the impetus for Krishna consciousness, for the determination, comes from bhakti. Now, how does one get that bhakti? You can say, well, I don't really have that bhakti right now. Well, the reason you don't have that bhakti is because we're all, not you, me, we're all covered by the lower modes of nature. But that bhakti is the inherent quality of the soul. Krishna consciousness is the inherent quality of the soul. It just has to be awakened. It's like when you wake up in the morning, you remember who you are. I hope so. Maybe it takes about 20 minutes and a cup of coffee or something like that. The tea. And then some people, they remember who they are. It's that I'm not happy with who I am. And then they go back to sleep. But you remember who you are. So it's awakening. So the Maha Mantra, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhava Mahad Bhagni Nirvapanam, awakens one to that sense of bhakti. Because that's the natural constitution of the soul. And so whether or not one believes it, it works. So what we're trying to do in Krishna consciousness, just like we had before this class, we had a japa session with everybody. Everybody was chanting japa together very slowly. I have a hard time with that, chanting japa slowly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'm more like Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, like that. It's my speed, but I understand. I'm merciful. So with the Hare Krishna mantra, Cheto Darpanam Arshanam Bhava Mahad Bhagni Nirvapanam Chayakai Ravi Chandrika Vitarnam Abhijavadu Jivanam Anandam Bhuyadanam Paripadam Pranamrita Svadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtam. What it does, this is the first verse of Lord Chaitanya's Shikshashtaka, it actually cleanses your heart so you can really understand who you are. Because right now we don't have that determination for spiritual life. Yes, we have the determination for material life because we really want something. I want that house. You know, I was just speaking to one girl. She says, I want that boy. I said, he may not want you. She's very determined. I mean, I'm just like, wow, I wish I was so determined to be Krishna conscious. So that's passion. You know, I'm sure you've seen a lot of Bollywood movies where someone is very determined. Just like Prabhupada, there's this one person who became a great devotee, Bilvamangal Thakur. He wanted to be with his girlfriend. This is in India. This is not an American story. So it was the middle of the night, and it was a storm, a hurricane, Katrina. And so, something like that. And so, there's flooding in the streets of New Orleans. But anyway, so I'm not going to say he swam across the Mississippi River. But anyway, it was a storm, and there was lightning and thunder and floods, and he just couldn't keep himself from his girlfriend. So he swims across this river, grabs onto what he thinks is a log, but it's a dead body, and he climbs up the trellis, you know, and he's climbing on the ropes, and it's actually snakes, you know, they're up there. It's India, of course. And he finally, you know, disheveled, and his face is all scratched up, and his body is all scratched up, and he gets to the door of his girlfriend, and she's thinking, who is coming at this time of the night? She opens the door a crack. You know, there's a little chain on the door. And she says, Bilva Mangal! What? If you were so determined to be with Krishna, you'd be a pure devotee by now. Actually, there's a similar story with Tulsi Das, too, which I'm not going to tell right now. And he says, you're right. He snaps to it and goes to Vrindavan at that particular point. So yes, in the mode of passion, we have this great determination for prestige, money, houses, cars, you know, girlfriends, boyfriends, the perfect husband, perfect wife. Doesn't exist. So, or someone even wants to take sannyas so they get appreciation, you know. That's one of the motivations, or a lot of Mahaprasadam. So that's the motive. That's the motive. It's not a good reason for taking sannyas. Really bad reason. So it's necessary to cleanse the influence of the modes of nature, because that's really what's covering us. Karanam guna sangasha sadasad janma jonishu. The cause of our entanglement is guna sangha. So instead of guna sangha, that's why Lord Chaitanya said, satsanga tyagi vaishnavachara, that a Vaishnava, someone who wants to proceed in spiritual life, you got to decide if you want to proceed in spiritual life. If you don't, that's fine. That's really fine. You have my blessings to try to make it materially, because, you know, you'll learn after a few thousand lifetimes. But if you want to really proceed in spiritual life, then mamchiyo bhyavicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatichaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One has to get rid of the influence of the other modes of nature, the coverings of the heart that have been accumulated for many lifetimes in this world, because we have a subtle body. The subtle body, Linga Sharira, is sometimes called the astral body. And the subtle body is accumulating all the impressions that we've had for many lifetimes. Just like you had so many impressions in this lifetime, therefore you like certain foods. You know, if I mention some sweet that you ate when you were a kid, like, what is it? Mysore pop. What? Oreo cookies, yeah, anyway. So, you know, anyway, I saw some devotees just like exhibit symptoms of ecstasy. That's because of conditioning. We're conditioned souls. We're conditioned souls. And nothing wrong with that. I have nothing against jalebis or Mysore pak or pakoras or halwa or sweet rice or anything like that. I'm not preaching against those things. I'm just saying we're conditioned. We have memories. So we have memories from past lives. So the whole point is to Cheto Darpana Marjanam, to cleanse the mirror of the heart. And then, what naturally awakens is love. Wow. And also, you know, yastu sarvani bhutani atmane vanapashati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato bkgoswami. When you love Krishna and the spiritual master, you actually begin to love everybody, which is really nice because everyone's connected. You know, our animosities that we have between genders or races or nationalities is all based upon the bodily platform. It's all based on the mode of passion. So we come to the mode of goodness, transcendental goodness, clearing away sagunan samati shaitan. And then that's the Brahman platform. And then, at that point, you can really be determined for spiritual life and not just material things. And of course, you also take care of your material things nicely. But then the idea is, then you become happy. Because the problem with the mode of passion is what? Does anyone know what the Bhagavad-Gita says? Happiness is the mode of passion? Yeah, and in the beginning, it's like nectar, too. This is nectar. I remember when I was a new devotee, about 75 years ago, me and Jai Jagadish used to eat a lot of ice cream. Remember? He even made his own ice cream. I used to go down to his room. We had this ice cream machine, and we would enjoy like anything. So when you eat a lot, and I remember in the early days, I would eat so much. I followed Prabhupada's instructions of eating so much it comes up to the neck. That was the one instruction of Srila Prabhupada that I took most seriously in my Krishna Consciousness. So, but then I had some distress afterwards. And everyone told me that distress was purification. You're getting purified, Prabhu. So the point is that that's the passionate things. You may get what your goal is. You may be very determined in getting your goal, but it causes you distress. But in the mode of goodness, you get spiritual life, kevalananda kanda. It's only happiness. It's only happiness. Like in a few minutes, Aditya Ryan Prabhu is going to talk about distributing books. And when one goes out and distributes books, one experiences, right, isn't it? So much happiness. When I used to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books many, many years ago, I remember it was so much happiness. These are the happiest days of my life. And also, myself and Jaya Jagadish worked in producing Prabhupada's books in Spanish, isn't it? Wasn't it blissful? It was extremely blissful. And so that's where happiness comes from. One time in Los Angeles, we were producing 17 books in 2 months for Srila Prabhupada, and everybody was giving up their eating and sleeping and mating and defending, hopefully. And it was the happiest time of my life. So that's spiritual life. When you're connected with Krishna, the word Krishna means the most attractive person who gives you ananda or bliss. Krish, attract. Na, ananda or bliss. And that's Krishna consciousness. So gradually we should be cultivating this mode of goodness. It comes by chanting the Lord's holy names, which is non-different from Krishna. Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigra. And then you not only become happy, but you realize who you are. You realize your spiritual identity in the spiritual world. And then you're so much aloof from the problems of this world, like COVID, that they don't really bother you anymore. So anyway, so that's determination. I want to keep it short because Narayan Prabhu asked me, because we have some book distribution results to announce for the deities. So thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So you ready? Okay. So Aditya Narayan is in charge of our preaching here, which is the most important activity. And because of his hard work, we have so many nice devotees here and so many nice festivals. And he's fulfilling Srila Prabhupada and his spiritual master's desire to bring people to Krishna consciousness. So we very much want to appreciate Aditya Narayan Prabhu. Okay.
Hare Krishna. So let's thank Maharaj. You get such a perfect class for our offering today, talking of Srila Prabhupada's determination, about goal. Such a wonderful class. So let's first of all thank His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So as I announced earlier, the last Monday was Bhadra Purnima. This day, all over the world, this is actually the third year, where all over the world there is this global service, like global team coming together to distribute Srimad Bhagavatam. And how we know Srila Prabhupada has stressed, like, when he came to, Maharaj was talking about the point that how Srila Prabhupada came to the West on a ship, he had actually 3 heart attacks and his wonderful determination. And we hear that Prabhupada says that it's actually Srimad Bhagavatam who came to the West, and he was just, bringing the Srimad Bhagavatam to the West. So, and we understand the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna himself. Right? Krishna swadhamo pagate dharma jnana bisa kalo nashta drishamesha punanarko dhunodita. This Purana has arisen just after the departure of Krishna. And for everyone in this age of Kali Yuga, this Purana is going to give light, is going to establish Dharma. So we understand the Srimad Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna himself. The 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam represent the entire form of Krishna. Right? And also we read so much glorification that how even the presence of Srimad Bhagavatam in anyone's house creates so much auspiciousness. Like there's a famous verse from Chaitanya Bhagavat that actually says that whichever house Srimad Bhagavatam, the Pushtak is there will be nothing amangal in that house. That is the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam. So all around the world there is this mission to actually bless all the houses all over the world with the presence of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this year, the global goal all over the world was 25,000 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that was the goal, and the scores actually, it goes for a few months leading unto Bhadra Purnima. And all over the world, everyone, trying here. Also, so many devotees came together. Let's see how we can bless the different families with Srimad Bhagavatam. And also this year, BBT, actually North America, made a tie-up with India BBT that, you can actually ship books to India from here So people were also like, sending Bhagavatams to relatives in India and to friends in India, calling different parts of US, calling neighbors, and everyone was actually reaching out to distribute Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's see if I can get this. So before I announce the scores, I'll quickly just show you a few photos. There's just like 20 photos. I'll just scroll through the photos. I hope it works. Let's see. Okay, these are just different families receiving Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's nothing much to say. Sorry, Maharaj, should I turn it around so you can also see? I can see you. Okay. Okay. Just different families receiving Srimad Bhagavatam. And in the photos you see how children, when they receive Srimad Bhagavatam, they just like love it. It just becomes their life. And this is Vijaya Mataji donating Srimad Bhagavatam to Narhari. And this was on the day of Bhadra Purnima. So on the day of Bhadra Purnima in the evening, what we do is like we go to different houses, and those who would like, we actually go into their house, we do an arti, we welcome Bhagavatam on that auspicious day of Bhadra Purnima. So this is the, and this pious Indian lady is actually putting tilak to each book of the Bhagavatam and performing an arti. Come back to that in a minute. And when you go to the houses, we actually encourage the children to read Bhagavatam, and then they read one shloka of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I think that's it. Yeah, those are just few photos. We have so many more, but just wanted to show a sample of what photos we have. So this year we set a goal, our community here, of 75 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're, many of us were thinking like, what goal should we set? So last year we had like entire year 86 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. So this year we're thinking, what should be a goal? So we said, okay, let's try for 75 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam. And when we set the goal, it's always, when we set a goal, like how Mara was saying, the point of setting the goal, we didn't know how we would reach the goal. We just had, okay, there's a 75, how is going to happen? We don't know. So we tried different ways, different devotees tried reaching out to their friends, neighbors, families, and so on. And at one particular point, we actually came to maybe like around 32 sets of Bhagavatam. And this was not too long back, it was maybe just before Janmashtami or something around that. And we're thinking, just 32 sets? We have a goal of 75? It is just impossible. And it was really like, you're thinking, 32 sets, how can we reach 75? And normally when we make a goal, Krishna does some magic. So I was actually praying, I was saying, Krishna, this year, is your magic going to happen or not? So it was 32 sets, and we're thinking like, and also some devotees were saying, maybe this year we should actually readjust our goal to 50 sets. And distributing Srimad Bhagavatam is, everyone, we all know who have done it. It's not an easy task. You did the whole glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, you talk about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, and the family sees, and even if they are past, they see like, 18 books, and then after the whole presentation, they'll say, no, not interested. And we all have the experience. It's not easy. Like, sometimes even distributing one book of Bhagavad-Gita is challenging. What to talk of 18 books of Srimad Bhagavatam? And this year also, so we have the 18-volume Bhagavatam, but they actually came up with a new print. There's a smaller book, so we had 44 books. So 18 books itself, people see and they say like, it's too much. When you say 44, it's like, certainly not possible. So, and the thing is actually, North America, BBT, they ran out of print of 18 sets, 18 books. So the only version that was available was 44. So that actually made it more challenging in one way. But also one way, like people who had 18, they said like, oh, maybe this 44 is better, so they also got it. So it worked in both ways. So, but at one point we're at 32 and we're thinking like, how is this going to happen? How is this going to happen? And then it was just like, Krishna, are you going to do the magic this year? So and the devotees, just like everyone, the committee came together. They actually called the people in India, they called relatives in US, talked to their friends, and people, like orders started coming. And saying like, yes, the magic is happening. Maybe Krishna will make it happen. And all during this time when we are like at 32 sets, it's like one way anxiety in the heart, like, oh, is this going to happen? And that's certainly very purifying and very wonderful. And then, this is like, so after it's like maybe in the last 1 month, there was like really a push. Everyone reached out and orders were made for India and so on. And then I'm pleased to announce that we smashed our goal. So initially when we were forming the goal, we said, okay, 75. But then one devotee said, no, this is Srila Prabhupada's 125th anniversary. We should set a goal of 125. I said, no, that's not going to happen. That's too much. So anyway, someone had just said that point. But anyway, so we're focusing on 75. So now let's announce. For the pleasure of Shri Radha Golokananda, Giriraj Govardhan, Radha Sham Sundar, Srila Prabhupada, His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and all you assembled Vaishnavas, this year for Bhadra Purnima, we have distributed 125 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! And it is really mystical. 125, like when we were doing the calculation, it came to 125, but then some orders in India got cancelled, so it was 122. So we're thinking, okay, we're going to announce 122, and like, okay, that's what we did. And then some orders came in on the final moment, and it again came 124, and then one more order, 125. And I told Ratna Radhika, we should maybe because we have the entire Excel sheet with all the names, and so we said we are going to calculate manually 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 to make sure there's no mistake here. And finally it came to 125 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Hare Krishna. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki, Team New Goloka ki jai. So like that. No. But frankly, there's no credit for me. It is, the entire team, everyone reaching out, calling people, I'm just like an instrument just to fulfill the orders, but it's all the effort from all of you. Like, we had devotees, like all over reaching out, calling, and I was just like, okay, one more order. So it's all glories to all of you for distributing Srimad Bhagavatam and all the families who accepted Srimad Bhagavatam sets and contributed in any way. Many of you sponsored, or many of you just tried. It's glories to all of you. So Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. So thank you again. So we'll do one offering to Srila Prabhupada. And we have some petals, so we can actually come to Srila Prabhupada, offer our petals, and thank Srila Prabhupada, first of all, to be engaged in this wonderful, glorious service. Just to be a part of this seva is just our greatest fortune. So thank him for that we have this opportunity to be engaged in service, and pray to him that we can continue and as a team grow in this service of distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, okay, thank you, Mataji. So the goal was 25,000 Bhagavatam sets. And in India, the challenge is very difficult to get the scores because the Bhagavatams are going every place. But on the day of Bhadra Purnima, they had a pledge, and this is the final number, but still confirmations are coming. 35,426 sets of Srimad Bhagavata. And it's amazing, devotees, particularly from ISV, His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu and their team, they organize weekly calls where we have different devotees coming on the call and encouraging, and it was just wonderful to get that energy. Like His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj came, and when he was on the call, they showed the entire global map of, okay, this temple has so and so pledge. And Maharaj was looking, why is this place empty? Call these devotees, they have to distribute Bhagavatam. Why is this place? And all over the world, he was pointing out that this community needs to be encouraged. And it's just amazing, how, so all the devotees, Jayapataka Maharaj and other devotees, they all came to the call and just encouraged. So this entire offering, especially for our temple, we are not such a big temple here, to actually have this score, certainly we would like to thank His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. It is only because of Maharaj's mercy and association that we are actually engaged in this service. So let's thank His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Hari Bol! His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki. So we'd like to express our greatest gratitude, our one very, very great gratitude to His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu. He is our, he makes the impossible possible, that's what I can say. All over the world. One particular example, in Hong Kong, they had never done Bhadra Purnima before this year. So one devotee from there got in contact with Vaisheshika Prabhu. He said, make a goal, at least one set of Bhagavatam. He says, greater than 0 and not less than 1. That's what he told them. Greater than 0, not less than 1. Make a goal. And then they said, one set of Srimad Bhagavatam. That was their goal. And in just couple of weeks, they informed Vaisheshika Prabhu, we are at 9 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam in Hong Kong. And finally, on Bhadra Purnima, they scored 62 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam in Hong Kong. So all glories to Vaisheshika Prabhu. It is only his inspiration that he's encouraging all of us to actually go out, distribute Srila Prabhupada's books, distribute Bhagavatam. It is his inspiration, energy that he's getting the entire global team together to actually distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. And actually yesterday was his Vyas Puja, so this is our humble offering to His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu at his lotus feet, that he be pleased with our seva and he empowers our team and very soon visits us so we can further our book distribution. Okay? His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu ki jai. And I'd like to thank all the devotees, so many devotees. I won't mention the names because it's the entire team. But thank each one of you for all your efforts. This is all, our combined effort. This is, together we have made this possible. So thank every one of you. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva Okay, so thank you so much. So Hare Krishna. So our final score for this year is 125 Srimad Bhagavatam sets on 125th appearance year of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for all your inspiration and all your blessings. It's only because of you that we have been able to distribute books. Hare Krishna. We'll do a quick arti to Srila Prabhupada Maharaj, and then we'll go. Yeah. We'll just do a short arti in the morning, 10 minutes arti. So we'll offer arti, and we have petals which are going to pass out. So everyone can just come, take the petals, offer it to Srila Prabhupada. We'll do arti, and then we'll proceed downstairs for prasadam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.